Some people, two things about rent collection. Some people I know they want to pay cash. Doesn't matter. They don't want to do ACH. So how do you handle that?
Our average customer makes probably about $30,000 a year. So they have the capability. They've got like $2,500 to start the month off. They pay almost no income tax on that amount at all based on the tax tables. We have to repair the house for resale, and then we have to sell it. And when they sell it, then the customer goes back to paying the mortgage. So we are the reason that these customers can get financed.
One of the biggest issues is books. Usually they don't have the good set of books. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Bigger Life Podcast. Today we are joined with my co-host KK. Hi KK,
Hi,
how are you doing?
Jen, how are you?
Excited to have you on another episode. And also I'm joined with awesome mobile home investment guy, Frank Rolfe out of St. Louis, Missouri. How are you doing, Frank?
Doing great, Ray. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. So Frank, at one point of time you held the fifth largest mobile home company in US, right?
That's correct.
Where did it all started?
It all started with one kind of nasty mobile home park down in Dallas, Texas called Glen Haven that I bought simply because of the attractive financing. I didn't know anything about mobile home parks, but guy wanted 400 grand with 10,000 down, and he would carry 390,000. And I, coming out of the billboard sector where there is no seller financing, I didn't know that stuff even existed. And I thought, well, it's 2.5% down. It was non-recourse loan. If it didn't work out, I could give it back to him and walk away free and only be out 10 grand. So I thought, okay, I'll try out mobile home park investing, and that's how I started. Was on that first park, and I quickly turned it around. It was so poorly managed. There were tons of low hanging fruit on the turnaround, and so it was not hard to improve on. I bought it super cheap. Had great financing. So then once I got it fixed up, which took about probably 6 months till I turned it from negative cash flow to positive cash flow, I started looking for other turnaround mobile home parks. And then I came upon a second. It was even cheaper. The guy wanted 60 grand with 5,000 down, bought me a 15 space park and a 3-bedroom brick house, all very dilapidated. I had to go in and totally redo that. And then I did another, and then I did another, and then fast forward to 2010, merged forces with one of my earlier competitors, and we started buying more mobile home parks together, and we just kept doing that. And along the way, we started a Reg D 506 fund, and then a series of funds, and kept buying mobile home parks. And then by 2018, we had over 20,000 lots and about 200 parks, at which time we sold half of the portfolio to a private equity group out of New York and retained the other half. So that's the whole story.
So when did you first started?
1996 was my
1996.
start of the mobile home park business. In 1982 was the start of my billboard business.
Well, so how has business changed from 96 to now we are in 2025? So the deals that you were finding that day, are they still available or do they still exist?
Yes, the deals are still there in many ways, like they were, but some things have changed. Our industry, mobile home parks, nobody cared about throughout the 90s. Nobody much cared about during the early 2000s. And then when interest rates dropped to zero after the Great Recession, so like back about 2009-ish, 2010, a lot of people were realizing in a CD they were getting 0.25. And if they could just get a 1 point spread on a mobile home park, they get 10%. So 1 year of a mobile home park was worth 40 years of a CD. And suddenly people started getting more interested in real estate, and then mobile home parks specifically, simply because we are the dollar store of housing. We're the cheapest housing. So you had the recession and the demand for cheap housing got stronger. So people basically they grafted the two together. How would they get more than a 0.25 CD and have a contrarian thing that actually got stronger as the economy got worse. So that led a lot of people to start thinking about mobile home parks. But it still took a while. And then by 2015, the industry had three $2 billion transactions in 1 year. And the industry had never even had a 1 billion transaction in its earlier entire lifetime. So that got people's attentions. Now that private equity groups were moving into the sector, that made people even more interested. So over time, what we saw much more competition on the institutional side of the business, which is 100 spaces and up. We also saw, obviously, prices go up a lot because lot rents virtually doubled during that period, and cap rates halved. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell. So today, it's much more competitive, and the pricing is much higher on the things that private equity or larger buyers would buy. But on the smaller stuff, under 100 lots, it's not changed enormously. Now, there's still more buyers than there were before. Buyers are smarter than they were before. They use technology more than they used to use. But of the 44,000 mobile home parks in the US, only 4,000 are roughly institutionally owned. So we're still extremely fragmented.
Okay. Now that's a great area for new investors to get in then, right?
That's correct.
On the single family side, we hear a lot of institutional investors coming into big cities, how the institutional investors hold X percentage of the city's inventory, how prices and the rents are going up, and all that bandwagon. Let's talk about mobile homes for a moment. The way I understand mobile home park, it's of two or three components. So you got a mobile home park where you got these lots, and sometimes some of those lots have the mobile homes on it that you also own, right?
That's correct. Now, that's what we try not to do. But
You try not to
when we
do it.
buy them, we do. And then what we do in our company, we do what we call conversions. We convert the renters to owners because we just want to own the land. That's the goal. That's the end goal.
And why is that? Why don't you want to hold the home itself? Why just the landowner?
Okay, so if you look at how the industry is built and you look at lending, and of course, no one buys a mobile home park with cash. We all use lending. Lenders don't want you to own any of the homes. They want you just to own the land underneath. That's the simple way to do it. And the reason that is that mobile homes are not very sturdily built. If you go to the factory, you'll see they're I won't say they're built flimsily because HUD approves all of the engineering, but it is true that you can go in one end of a mobile home and you can have KK jump up and down, and the other end of the home shakes. And I guarantee you, if I go into your house and jump up and down on one end, you probably won't even hear it in the rest of the home. So it's inherent in the way homes are built. I mean, mobile homes are built on top of basically a boat trailer chassis that they have to be treated very gingerly. And when you rent property, that's the last thing you're going to get from a tenant is someone who treats it very respectively. So uh, we've learned over time that the mobile homes can uh, be heavily damaged by use, but the land can't. And so if we don't own the homes, we don't have to be stuck with repair and maintenance, floor plan obsolescence, and any of those capex items such as roofs, painting, etc. So the industry began just as land rental. That's what it was back in the 50s and the 60s. Is the park owner owned none of the homes, and that's where the industry is basically returning. So the only reason people own homes, to be honest with you, when we buy a mobile home park, mom and pop own homes in there because as people ran off and abandoned homes, they took the homes over, but then rather than sell them, they rented them because back then there was no economic outlet to tap into the value of the homes. Today you have four different lenders. You have PEP, you have Cash, you have Triad, and you have Zippy that will actually create mortgages for customers on mobile homes. So we basically today we let them create the mortgage, them be involved in the home, and we just stick with the land.
And those lenders that you mentioned, so they are lending to the homeowner who's gonna buy that mobile home.
Correct.
And usually, I'm not trying to discriminate here, but I'm just assuming here. Correct me if I'm wrong. Usually, the people who are buying those mobile homes, they, from a financial standpoint, from the credit rating standpoint, they are on the lower end of the spectrum. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
And usually, when you're into that scenario, a person does not have much of a savings, A, to put towards the down payment.
Correct.
Uh, B, they are hardly meeting their ends meet from a month to month standpoint. So I'm talking from a rental standpoint or from a mortgage standpoint, it's hard for me to make those payments,
Correct.
right? Which means higher degree of default. So as you deal with a lot of those banks, so I'm just trying to understand a little rationale here for those banks to finance. And it's important because as an investor, you are doing those conversions. So it's important for you to understand their side of the business as well, because for you to convert them, what's in the backdrop? How and why are those banks able to kind of lend on these borrowers with such profile?
Right. Well, you're exactly correct, Ray, on all fronts. What happens is for these banks to make a loan on a mobile home, the mobile home park owner who owns the land has to backstop the loan. So how we backstop the loan is if the customer defaults, we have to stop all ground rent payment. We have to take over making the monthly payment on the home. We have to repair the house for resale, and then we have to sell it. And when they sell it, then the customer goes back to paying the mortgage. So we are the reason that these customers can get financed. If the park owner did not backstop the loan, none of them would be financed. Now, the only exception are most of the lenders have a non-recourse program. And on the non-recourse program, we do not have to backstop the loan, but you have to have a customer with a credit score of 657, things that never occur in real life. Very, very rarefied air, right? So that's item one. Now, item number two, which will probably shock you, is the average default rate on a mobile home loan under this situation is 5%, which is very low. And you'll say, well, how can it be so low? You got to remember that in a mobile home park, the average lot rent is, let's say, 400 a month. And if when you add the average lot rent and the home payment together, many of these loans are sub $1,000 at a time when apartments are an average at 2,000 and stick builds are at 400,000. So we are kind of the end of the road for people. And if they default, then they're out of the housing market. There's nothing left. They've exhausted all the options. So they're going to have to live with a family member for the rest of their life, live in their car, or rent an apartment. And so they will typically fight to keep the home. Now, you were also correct when you said they don't have enough money to pay all their bills. They typically don't. They have some bills they just don't pay or don't pay on a regular basis. But they typically will pay housing at the top of the priority chart, right? They'll pay the house and their car. Those are the first two things that seemingly always get paid. If we're in there at 1,000, if the car is in there, let's say at $500, so 1,500 a month covers their basic necessities. Our average customer makes probably about $30,000 a year. So they have the capability. They've got like $2,500 to start the month off. They pay almost no income tax on that amount at all, based on the tax tables. So they got $2,500, $1,500. They peel that off. They've got 1,000 left for everything else in the pile. So what do they not pay? Health insurance. Most of them don't carry any health insurance. They stiff a lot of people. Magazine subscriptions, all those lower level bills, those never get paid. They may have Rent-A-Center coming out trying to get the TV back, chasing them around, but can't find it. And then finally they'll come up with that money. But as long as we're at the top of the priority pyramid of payments, then we're fine. And that's why we have such a low default rate, is because our stuff was so cheap. If our payment was 2,500 a month, yeah, we would have defaults like crazy because people just couldn't pay it and wouldn't. But because we're so cheap, they do pay.
Awesome. That's what I want to hear. Now, in cases where you have to do the backstop thing and you have to fix those mobile homes and make up those stop collecting payments and all that good stuff that happens. So that's a hit on your P&L. Usually, again, it's kind of broad spectrum. Let's say a mobile home, it's damaged now, and you look at it and you're like, okay, we need to fix it up and all that things that needs to happen. What is your budget per mobile home that you say, hey, we need to fix that up, or in your books, how much do you allocate for that?
Sure. Well, again, it's completely based on the home and what they did to it. But mobile homes are not very expensive to fix. Like to do a full rehab on a mobile home is typically about 5 grand. That's on one that was really, really badly damaged.
5 grand for full rehab?
Yeah, for full rehabs, correct. Mobile homes are predominantly, let's look how they're built. You have a metal boat trailer, and then you have what's called the stage on top of the boat trailer. The number one cost you have in a mobile home, the most number one damage are soft spots in the floor, which is typically particle board or plywood. So you pull the flooring back, you expose that, you cut that out, and you plop back in an appropriately cut piece of either plywood or particle board and put the flooring back down. And that's our number one cost. So that's like patching a pothole. That's our number one. Holes or damage in the walls, very inexpensive. Mobile home parts are incredibly mind-blowingly inexpensive. The reason people don't realize this is they don't frequent where people buy mobile home parts. Most people buy from a company called Purchasing Platform, which is like an Amazon specifically for mobile home parts. And we can buy a sink for $40 or less. We can buy a toilet for $50. We can pretty much buy anything insanely cheaply. Any handyman can do the work. These are very, very crudely constructed. If you look at how they're built, all interior walls are not load bearing, so they're decorative. Um, so yes, they're not that expensive to fix. Probably the cost of fixing them isn't your primary cost. The cost of carrying the lot rent while it's vacant might be equal or more. So if it took you three months to do the home and sell it, you'd be at $1,200 in lot rent. You might only have repairs in that home of 1,000, so you're at $2,200. You probably pay a commission to your manager to sell it. Add that on, you're probably at $3,000 loss. And so then you realize, okay, well, I have 5% of my home stock will default annually at a $3,000 loss. But if I have 20 homes, I'd get one every year. If I have 10 homes, I only get one maybe every other year. So that's one way to look at it. The other thing is that 5% default rate, that's a nationwide rate. And when you're in the mobile home park business across several states or more, you rapidly realize that American consumers are not wired the same in all of the states. So if you're in a northern state, Michigan, Wisconsin, they never default. And when they do default, the homes are immaculate. And then if you go down to a state like Oklahoma, they default all the time and they beat the homes to death. So your really rate of default and your how much your cost is per default will be hugely elastic based on what state you're in. And then additionally, just between individual mobile home parks is a night and day difference because of the kind of customers you get. So if you have a park that's predominantly older people or wealthier people, they will not do as much damage, nor will they default as much as poor people who also end up doing most of the damage. So it's very market specific, it's very park specific. But we have parks where we have had homes on third party mortgages that have never defaulted. And then we have other parks with them that we probably have had default rates in some periods as high as 10%. So, but the US average is 5.
Okay, fair point. Now, conversion, how do you convert the mobile home, from your ownership to the buyers? Or how do you bring them in, or what offers do you give, or what's your conversion strategy from your perspective?
Yeah, when we take over a mobile home park which has rentals, and we've taken over parks that has many. Our record was 130 rentals in one park. What you do is you take the lot rent, you take what they're currently paying, you subtract the currently paying from the lot rent, take off an extra $100, and that's about how much they have to allocate towards the home. Because to get them to go from a renter to a buyer typically requires them to save $100 a month, or they don't want to buy, they just want to rent. Because we're pushing back on them, repair and maintenance, tax, and insurance, right? So if I can make it happen, let's assume mom and pop was renting the home for $800 a month. Let's assume my lot rent is $400 a month. Let's assume that $100 figure. So I only have $300 to play with. Well, $300 on a mobile home is only going to get you a mortgage of about 10 grand. That's all. But the lenders will do used home mortgages based pretty much on whatever you want to kind of set it at. They have an upper limit, which is typically some are native value, but some have no upper limit. And so we would then go to the customer and say, "Do you want to buy this home for $10,000?" Because basically that'll be $100 a month less than what you're paying. It'll be yours. And then at some point, the mortgage will be exhausted, and then you'll have hundreds of dollars extra a month to play with. That's pretty much the pitch. And most sane people say, "Yeah, I'm going to do that because it's $100 a month cheaper, and they get to own it." The other part of it is we also set a date in which we will no longer rent. And so when we send out the notices that we'd love them to buy it, we also tell them, "But on this date, we will no longer rent it." So here's how the numbers work, Ray. Basically, if you started off with 100 homes, when you send out that notice, about half of the people will come to you and say, "I'll do it." They'll literally chase you down, come to the office, say, "I want it. Where do I sign?" So we normally convert half almost instantly. But then you have another half left. And the other half isn't going to take action until the deadline approaches for them to have to leave. So then about half of that half will come to the office begrudgingly saying, "I guess I'll take it. I don't really want it, but I got nowhere else to move so as cheaply as this place." So you'll convert that. It's that last half of the half, or 25% of the whole, that can go any direction. You may luck out and you convert all of them, and you may be very unlucky and all that entire sector may just run off. So we've had it's just that last half of the half that is very unpredictable. And so when you're budgeting for a park like that on conversions, you basically budget the 25% are going to run off because that's kind of the norm. And then on that 25% that run off, I'll have to go in and rehab those homes, run the ads, show the homes, sell the homes conventionally. But on conversions, that's how it works.
Now, when you are converting the homes, like those last 25%, right? So 75% have been converted, 25% were remaining. Now you have to fix them. You fix them. You run the ads now. Now you bring tenants at that point of time, or you bring homeowners at that point of time?
No, well, what we do is we rehab the homes. We start with the nicest one we have. We'll run the ads on the nicest, most expensive one we have, and then we'll try and downsell people. So the way it works is first off, our metric is we have one showing for every 3 calls. We have 3 showings to every application. So nine calls should trigger 1 application, but not every application gets approved. So in some markets, I may have to go through 2, 3, 4 applications to get someone who the lender will approve. But when they arrive at the home, we show them the home, and then we say, "Do you want to see something cheaper?" They typically always say, "Yeah, show me something cheaper." And we basically downsell to what may be our worst condition home, offering to let them have it at an incredibly low price, but they'll have to fix it up. So a lot of times when we have homes that people have abandoned in bulk, we don't remodel all of them. We remodel maybe just the best one, and then start learning about our consumers and what they really want and what they can afford. Because, oftentimes we'll have a guy that shows up to buy the nice home who ends up buying the worst home, even though it needs 5,000 of work, because we may give him that worst home for $1 or something. So that'll only cost him 5,000, whereas our best home that might be selling for 15.
Did I hear dollar as a reality, or you just said a dollar?
No, we have in many cases given homes away for free.
Just because you want to collect the rent, you don't want to be in the home business of renting the home.
That's
You just
exactly
want to be in the
correct.
business of renting the land. Okay, makes
That's
sense.
correct. We just want to be in the land business.
See, this is very different from, I come from a short-term rental standpoint, and the way I do things and the way I analyze things is way different. And this industry that you're telling me is way too different. So I'm learning at the same time. It's
That's great. No,
interesting.
our industry is very unique in the way that it is structured.
This is good. I mean, I also have some land, and we have like land. Nothing goes wrong, right? I'm growing timber over there. I haven't looked my land in like so many years. Once in a while, I go over it. There's just some trees standing. Well, the same trees were there even last time I was there. You know what I mean?
Right,
And maybe in another 5 to 10 years, those trees are ready to be for a cut, and we'll just cut them.
right.
So nothing goes wrong with the rand. I mean, there's no depreciation and all that. So, but yeah, okay. Now let's talk about. You mentioned about office. So that means staffing. That means expenses, payroll, right? Mobile home industry generally. How do you staff it from a at what size do you need to staff it, or smaller than that you don't staff it, but bigger than that, that's when you should really be buying it, because there's pitfalls. You buy too small, then you are always kind of driving, or somebody has to drive there. But you buy too big as your first investment, and you're kind of made a wrong investment. So give some guidance on that.
Sure. Well, first off, every mobile home park that we own or anyone owns, you have to have an on-site manager. But the manager is typically someone who lives in the park. The pay scale is very low. It's typically $10 per lot per month. So let's say you had a 30 space mobile home park. You would typically pay out $300 a month to someone who lives in the park to be your quote manager unquote. And you have to abide by minimum wage laws. So in Missouri, it's 15 an hour. So that means the most I can work, a manager paying them 300 is 20 hours a month. So I might say, okay, with my 20 hours a month, here's the plan. I want you to walk or drive once around the park every day. And then I just want you to be my eyes and ears in the field if I need you. Because most of what we do today is automated. Our rent collection, at least in our portfolio, we're about 93% ACH. So people pay electronically. The manager does not touch any money at all in many of our parks. We have the managers take HD videos with GoPro cameras, which they mount on the top of their car with a suction cup mount, and have them send us the video of the park monthly so we can see in HD exactly what it looks like. We can go to a GoToMeeting and webinar and basically scroll the video with them, with us, as though we're driving in the car, asking them questions. But you have to understand, when you just own the land, you're basically a parking lot. So our business as a parking lot, all we have to provide is the parking space. And then we mow our common areas during the summer. We might have to snow plow common areas in the winter. And we have to make sure the utilities are flowing and the road doesn't have any big potholes in it. So it's not an action packed job. I mean, it's something that anybody can do. And so we don't have a lot of payroll in the field. We have shocking low amount of payroll in the field. Where you're going to have payroll is you have to have someone to do the accounting and bookkeeping on the rents coming in, right? We have to track all that. We have to write the checks, but the average park has fewer than 10 checks a month to write. So we don't have a lot of that on the back office. And a lot of people who are coming from a bookkeeping accounting perspective who can run, QuickBooks and Excel or software like Rent Manager, that may be their whole inside staffing is themselves, or they may have one person who just does that. But we're a very lean operation. It became that way because our rents are so low. We can't afford to really hire managers. Like an apartment complex would have an actual manager who lives off site, typically, maybe an assistant manager, maybe a maintenance guy. We can't do any of that stuff. There's not enough money to do that.
I like it the way you said. I mean, it's $10 per lot or whatever, right? So, and that person who's living there take the responsibility of becoming a manager. Okay, great. And then you are using technology for this. Now, some people, two things about rent. Some people I know they want to pay cash. Doesn't matter. They don't want to do ACH. So how do you handle that?
Okay, well, first off, you look at your state laws because some states you are required to take cash, but in many states you're not. And so we try never to take cash. If the customer refuses to do ACH, then we'll have them pay us by check or money order, right? And then on the check and money order payment, they can either bring it to the office or some people have them mailed into a PO box. So if you have other parks where you may want to have greater cash collection, if your park is predominantly Hispanic, it's very frequent they do not have any banking, so therefore they cannot do ACH. So in those parks, you enter into in arrangements in which people are able to pay at Walmart's or different stores in cash. But we just don't want managers taking cash. Two reasons. Number one, embezzlement. The other reason is just safety, because if people know in the park the manager will have a certain amount of cash on the first of the month, well, they're more than likely trying to rob the manager.
So how do you convert the money from Walmart? So in Walmart, they deposit in your account?
Yeah, I've forgotten the name of the program. We have it in certain parks, in which yes, they can go to any local Walmart. There's a list of stores they can go to, and
Uh-huh.
they can pay their rent at the cashier. I mean, I've seen it done myself at Walmart. People ahead of me in line.
Okay.
Many
But
many
it comes
many
to
landlords have
your
it these days.
your LLC account, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, perfect. So that's the rent collection side. We talked about there's low degree of default, but when it happens, do you collect any late payments?
No, well, when typically in our business, when someone starts going into a default mode, they run off. So normally, if default is about to occur, they will throw all their worldly goods in the back of a pickup truck and drive away.
That's it.
So normally on the collection side, by the time we would file for eviction, before they would even go to court, they will often have abandoned it. Part of it is simply from the embarrassment of their neighbors, the fact that people realize they can't pay, and like any American, they don't like that, so they will often make other arrangements and leave. You rarely in our business have to go all the way to the writ of possession stage. At the point of not paying, they typically will run off.
In that sense, it's a good thing because you don't have to wait for a lengthy process. If it's abandoned, you can just call the cops, mark it as abandoned, and you are the owner. You get the possession back, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Now the lender handles that part of it. So if it's a backstopped home, they one of the lenders things they have to do is the actual foreclosure process, all the way to the resident not being there.
The cost is on the lender, not on you.
That falls on the lender, not us. That's correct. But in most cases, 90% of the cases, they just run off. It's not a having the constable come and throw them out kind of situation.
When you're looking for a park, ideally, what should be the size of a mobile home park that one should be targeting? Nothing too small, and nothing too big. I mean, what's the reasonable size?
Okay. Well, the optimal size for a mobile home park would be that the park, when you're done with it, turning it around is worth $1 million. And that's because most of the best lending products start at $1 million. So if you wanted to buy a park in a market, you would figure out first off what an occupied lot is worth, and that's a function of the lot rent. So typical mobile home park has an expense ratio of 30 or 40%. 30% if the tenants pay their own water sewer, 40% if the park pays the tenant's water sewer. So you can run the algorithm and figure out where you're at. So if your lot rent is $300 a month, $3,600 of revenue, let's say the tenants pay their own water sewer, 30% expense ratio. So you got like maybe 2,200, $2,300 of value. The 10 cap, 23,000, 5 cap, 40,000. If you take the middle ground between those two, and let's say, okay, well then an occupied lot is worth $30,000. Then in that park, in that area, I would have to buy a park that has at least roughly 34 lots to break $1 million in value. In other parts of America, like in Colorado, lots can often be worth 100,000 a lot. So there, a 10 space park may hit $1 million in value. But what you don't want to do is buy parks so small that when you're done with them, they don't hit $1 million. Because if they don't hit $1 million, the only way you can finance it to sell it is to carry the financing yourself or to find a small town local bank. And small town local banks, they're not very aggressive on appraisals. Terms are not that attractive. So to get really good money in the business, you need to end where you're within the realm of loan brokers, national banks, conduit lenders, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. That's where you want to end up. So the key for most people when you're buying just to stay out of trouble is try and never buy things so small they don't hit seven figures when you're done.
When you say when you are done, I'm trying to understand this phrase. So that means after the conversion.
Well, yeah, there's more to conversions than that, though. The conversions are typically the least part of the turnaround. The biggest part of the turnaround normally is uh, pushing the rents to market, because many mom and pop lot rents maybe only $250 a month, let's say, in markets that are at 500 and more, and we typically don't raise the rents more than 50 a year. So that'll take us 5 years to get those people to market. And by then, market has gone up higher, right? So I may have to go more than 50, may have to go 70 a year to get to market. I might have to go a couple years after I get those 5 years in to get to market. Also, we want to go in and fill as many of the vacant lots as we can. So we're actually going to go out there and buy and bring in new and used homes to fill the lots. We want to make the park look nice so an appraiser will be impressed with it. So we're going to redo the entry, fix things up, paint homes even though we don't own them. We may paint certain homes, fix the skirting on certain homes. Those are the key items of the turnaround. And then once you have most of that done, that's when you will typically do one of two things. You'll either sell the park off or you'll refinance the park, and then you move on to the next one. That's kind of how it works.
Let's talk about, so there's always spread that you want to make, right? So on the buy side, on the sell side. So when you're buying a mobile home park, at what cap rate do you want to buy it? And when you're selling it, at what cap rate are you trying to sell it?
Sure. Our industry has done better than most all other industries during this. I don't know what we would title this period since interest rates doubled since Q1 of 22. Our industry still typically trades, the better properties still sell for 4 and 5 caps, even though the interest rate on the loans is more than 5%. Which you may say, well, that's impossible. Well, no, that's because everyone continues to be able to push the rents up substantially. But that's at the higher end of the spectrum. That would be on private equity deals that are 100 spaces and above. When you get below 100 spaces, probably your typical cap rate today is going to be more along the lines of a range of probably 6 to 9% cap rate. On stuff that's really, really ugly, really beat up, you might get as high as a 12 cap. So, but that's kind of the cap rate range. As you can see, it's all over the map based on quality of property, size, who the buyer is. So, from our low end of the cap rate range in our business to the high end of the cap rate range is almost a 300% difference, which is really astoundingly bizarre. But if someone's watching this, getting into the business, you're going to buy a smaller park, then I would say your target cap rate needs to be at least 1 point higher than the interest rate on the debt. Interest rate on the debt being probably today something in the sevens. So you can probably buy something in the 8 caps to have a 1 point spread. 1 point spread's a 10% return. And then you'd want to push the rents and try and get yourself up to a 3 point spread, which is a 20% return. That's what most people target. And then at that point, you would finish the turnaround as best you can, and then you would decide whether to sell it or refinance it.
Let's talk about debt servicing. Typically, as a park owner, when you are buying the park, which also has, let's say, partially homes on it, not just the land, and you're trying to finance it, what kind of financing terms do you see? Like on the single family side, usually standard conventional loan is 30 years, whatever the interest rate is, it's fixed 30 years. On the commercial side of the properties, it's a variable rate. So you got a bridge loan, then you got 5 years or 10 years of it's amortized over 30, but you have to refi every 5 years or 10 years, whatever that is.
Right.
On the mobile home side, what are your terms when you're entering into something like that, and when you're refinancing? Follow up question. As you said, you have done the conversions, you have jacked up the rates and all that. What are your terms after 5 or 7 years?
Sure. Yeah. Our typical amortization would be a 25-year amortization. You can sometimes get 30. Normally, it's 25-year am. Length of loan is based on loan product. If it's mom and pop financing, probably the average is 10-year. If it's small town bank, it's typically 5-year. If it's conduit lender, 10-year. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, 10-year or 12-year. So that's kind of the terms. Interest rates are traditionally fixed. Conduit is fixed. Most of your banks are fixed. They often will offer variable. Seller carry is fixed, but Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac gives you the option of having fixed or variable. A lot of people right now are doing variable. They're buying caps on the variable under the assumption the rates are going to come down, but no one really knows. As far as down payment, conduit, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, 70% loan to value. Small town bank may get down to 80% loan to value. Mom and pop is a wild card. Mom and pop, you might be able to get up to 90% loan to value.
And when you're calculating the value, you are calculating based upon the rents or based upon because land has intrinsic value in itself. It might not be producing as much of rent, but land has a value. So how do
Yeah.
you come up with the value side of things?
In the park business, it's always based on income. It's not based on land value, which I know seems odd. So what we typically do is you figure out what you anticipate the EBITDA or net income to be under your ownership. And under your ownership, typically you're going to change some things immediately. For example, we've bought parks where the manager is making 100,000 a year, even though we could replace them with someone making 30,000 a year. We've bought parks that have $5,000 a month water leaks, which you could easily fix and save $5,000 a month from day one. So you take all these management screw ups mom and pop have, you figure out what of those you can solve. That's kind of your benchmark NOI. But then the problem is that that's all great and everything, but all the lender can see is what's there right now. So the lender's going to want to see the last 3 years P&L, tax returns if they can get them, and they're going to want to they'll derive a value somewhat based on mom and pop's existing NOI. But our industry, typically the sellers are so bad that most of the appraisers will have some degree of flexibility in underwriting them that do not always include mom and pop's performance. So if a market rent is 500 and everyone knows it because you're in a big city and mom and pop are charging 200, the appraiser is probably going to set his own internal revenue figure at somewhere between 2 and 500 under the argument that you can raise it nearly immediately. And they'll also take out expenses that look stupid to them, reformulate the NOI, then they'll apply their own cap rate to that and come up with their value.
A mom and pops, one of the biggest issue is books. Usually they don't have the good set of books. They were collecting rents, cash, and they don't have books. They were, I don't want to call evading taxes, but maybe they were, but they were just collecting and they did not have means, let's say it, to put together a good set of books. So how do you evaluate that? Where they say, hey, person A, B, and C, they were just paying me cash and I just know that's what my income is. So how do you go about that?
Yeah, our industry is strange on that one because, for example, in the RV industry, which is our closest cousin, if you don't have financials, well, you can't get a loan. So if they don't have good 3-year financials, seller has to carry. In our industry, because it's so slow moving, like you can see the homes on the lots, you know what the lot rent should be, that you can actually from scratch kind of come up with a semblance of a budget in the absence of them having financials. And it actually happens quasi frequently. So in that case, anyone can go out and they can see there's 30 homes in the park, 30 families in the 30 homes. They can approximate what they think a lot rent would be. They can get the actual readouts from all the providers on utility cost, property tax, everything, and then you come up with your own NOI. And because it's really hard to get burned doing that, a lot of people are comfortable doing that. It's probably the only real estate sector you can. I mean, you probably on an office building you probably could. I mean, you could go to each person in the office building. What do you pay in rent? You could piece it together. I know in a lot of foreclosure situations with office buildings, the people don't divulge the financials because the borrower is mad they're being foreclosed on. They run off with the financials. You can rebuild them. In our industry, even when mom and pop gives you the financials, it's not uncommon to have people rebuild them anyway, simply because they're so screwed up.
Somebody who's listening to this and they have now understood the whole gambit of how to invest into mobile homes, where to find the deals.
Okay, well, where you find the deals are you can go on websites. There are online mobile home parks right now. at mobilehomeparkstore.com or loopnet.com. They always have online listings, but that's not probably your best source. It's a source, not your best source. There's about 100 brokers in the US which just do mobile home parks, predominantly through Marcus and Millichap offices, but there's others. There's Sunstone, Mueller Hoffman, many others. You want to get that list of those brokers, many of which you can find if you go to the online site. You can find the brokers. Reach out to the brokers, get on their list, which they send out on a regular basis of all their listings. Call them periodically to see if they have any what are called pocket listings, listings they don't publicly advertise. But then you want to pick markets, typically within a 5-hour radius of your house, driving radius, and start doing some degree of direct mail or cold calling to park owners just to see what's available. And you're kind of acting then as a matchmaker for yourself, trying to find what the best deal is out there at the moment so that you spend your money on what's the best deal. But even a novice person can pretty much come up with a list almost immediately of probably, based on their market, anywhere from 10 to 100 parks that are on the market. And so then you start the exercise of making offers on them, tying stuff up, doing diligence on them, throwing the ones back you don't like, and then buying the ones that you do.
Well, thank you, Frank. Thanks for sharing all this information. Now, I know you have written some books. Let's talk about that. So, can you mention the books and what they are about?
Yeah, a lot of books. Probably our most popular book is called 30 Days of Diligence, telling you what to do each day during due diligence. But I've produced entire courses on mobile home park investing, and all of that's on our website, which is mhu.com, mobilehomeuniversity.com. But I have literally, if you go to the website, I have thousands of free hours of me talking about different aspects of the industry. So there's a lot of information on there.
Absolutely, and that's what I love. When people are sharing that knowledge for others to kind of join, and
Mhm.
that's very helpful. Well, I really appreciate you joining, Frank. There's a lot of information that you shared, and somebody who wants to invest into mobile homes, definitely they can get started with this episode and then get onto MHU and then listen to your podcast or other information and join your courses.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining our today's episode of Bigger Life Podcast. We'll be back next week with another amazing story. Thank you.